Good afternoon, everyone. That's a little bit hotter than I thought it was going to be. Um, Thank you, everyone, for joining us for today's Early Childhood Advisory Council, June 20th, 2022. The first action that we'll have is our call to order and with our roll call. So Amanda, if you would, please do our roll call.
Lynn Baker. Representative Kim Banta. Dr. Annette Bridges. Twyla Burdette. Travis Burton. Senator Danny Carroll. Dee Dee Cummings. Scotty Collier. Dr. Felicia Cummings Smith. Andrea Day. Anita Dowd. Kim Fithian. Secretary Eric Friedlander. Dr. Jason Gilbert. Dr. Jason Glass or proxy. Thank you. Paula Goff or proxy.
Here, Donna Montgomery.
Rena Gratz. Dr. Amy Hood. Brittany Howell.
I am here.
Greta McKenzie. Beth Morton.
Here.
Mary Pat Regan. John Roden. Amy Smith. Tracy Stimmel.
Here.
And Dr. Connie White. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Amanda. Moving right along, in the packet that you received prior to coming to today's meeting, you received a copy of the March 16th minutes along with the pre-read. There's also a copy for those that are in attendance in the right side of the folder jacket for you to review. After you've done so, if someone will please make a motion to approve the March 16th minutes. So moved. But first, is there a second? Second, so it's been properly first and second. All those in favor of approving the minutes, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We'll continue on. Before we get into the Executive Director's update with Executive Director Amy Neal, I just want to bring your attention to the agenda that we have today. As we're looking down, it does show towards the end of the agenda that we'd be moving into executive session. We will not be going into executive session. That will be, though the agenda item will continue on, we will have the review of priority number 1, the support and grow of Kentucky's early childhood workforce and the standards review. But again, that will not be an executive session. But moving right along, I will now yield the floor to Amy Neal for the Executive Director's update.
Hi, John. Can you hear me? John, can you hear me okay?
We hear you fine, Amy.
Okay, so I'm going to keep this
We
short.
can barely hear. Hold on just a moment, Amy.
Okay.
Okay, Amy, go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to keep this short and sweet. I am under the weather and I'm not going to have you all put up with my voice. So I'm sorry that I'm not there in person to join you today. For the Executive Director report today, wanted to share with you that we were thrilled to have the opportunity to work with National Center for Families Learning and KET to redesign our companion piece for the early childhood standards. And we're going to roll that out tomorrow at the Early Childhood Institute. And I just will say, wait till you all see this companion guide. It is so great. Hats off to our team, especially Lynn Baker, who did a tremendous job. I think you all are really going to love it. It looks nothing like it has in the past, and I think our families are going to love it. Had a great meeting with Secretary Friedlander And Dr. Williams recently about an opportunity for next year for the Early Childhood Institute to do some alignment. And in the spring, we're going to do an Early Childhood Institute that is collaborative with the Cabinet for Health and Family Services and the Kentucky Department of Education. So we're very excited to announce that. The Kentucky Governor's Office of Early Childhood has been invited to participate in a one-year fiscal mapping project with the Children's Funding Project that will be mapping cradle to career investments. And I think the last thing that I would just share today is that we completed our audit June 10th for expenditures for the Early Childhood Development Fund. And then we also completed our Title VI report. And then Lynn Baker, I think you have an announcement.
I do. We would like to take this opportunity to thank Mr. John Roden for all of his service to the Early Childhood Advisory Council. And we would like to recognize him with a certificate commissioning him as an official Kentucky Colonel. And from one colonel to another, welcome and congratulations.
So if you didn't know, this will be my last meeting as chair and as part of the Early Childhood Advisory Council. It has really been my distinct pleasure and honor to be able to serve on this group and within this team from the prior administration through our current administration. And one of the things that truly is remarkable is that the work that goes on, it really is about kids. We can have disagreements and we can look at things from different perspectives, and that's what makes it rich. But also whenever we can focus on the humans, you know, that's what we're here about is for service, service to children, service to families, and that's just ministry and missions. And when we can do that, I think that makes for a fulfilling life. So I won't go away completely, but I will be going away from this group. But if there's anything I can ever do for any of you, please don't hesitate to reach out. And I wish that the best, but we still have business to get through today. So thank you very much. I appreciate that. I didn't even think about anything. So that's awesome. All right. So moving on, I want to make sure I keep you guys on time. So the next item that we have is for our partner agency updates. Again, these were sent out electronically. They're also for those that are here in the room in the right side of the jacket for the pre-reads for the Kentucky Department of Ed, Cabinet for Health and Family Services, Division of Child Care, the Head Start Collaboration Office, and for CHFS Department of Health. But if we can, do we to go through, and Thomas, are you going to present for KDE? Okay, so I'll yield the floor to Dr. Thomas Williams for KDE's update.
So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Thomas Williams, and updates for our office. So the child outcome summary. So Kentucky is moving from the Kentucky Early Childhood Data System to the COS process. And so the COS process was created by OSEP under the U.S. Department of Education. And it's data we're going to actually collect it looking at child outcome data. So we're very excited about that change that we're going to move from KEDS to the COS. Next, we're very, very excited to announce the elevation of preschool. So this change will not change anything programmatically. It's just going to change actually where the preschool lives within our office. So initially preschool was in the division of implementation and preschool, and now it's going to be elevated to the office level. So again, nothing will change. And I have the honor and the opportunity to lead that early learning team. And so we will continue to provide technical assistance, professional learning, and program guidance to improve the quality of preschool students and special education services. Our next thing is our early learning ARP. So our early learning ARP team, they have, and they're seeking applications to convene or put together early learning leaders throughout the state of Kentucky. So this is very exciting, where teachers will have the opportunity to collaborate and to build community with one another, to talk about the challenges during COVID. And so we're very excited about that initiative. Those applications are due June 30th. So again, those applications for teachers to participate is due on June 30th. And again, it's like a professional learning community. They'll be together, talking, and also building each other's leadership capacity. Next, so we're also very excited to announce enrollment with preschool, with our state-funded preschool programs. So our numbers are bouncing back. So it's not where we want it to be, but we're happy to see that children are coming back to school. So in 2021, our enrollment was 18,333. And so we're now at, it was 15,898. And we're now in the 21-22 school year looking at 18,333 students. So again, we are seeing our children, our babies coming back to school, and we're very excited about that. And last, our United We Learn initiative with Dr. Glass. I don't know if you want to talk about this initiative. Okay.
Thank you. The United We Learn effort came about after a listening tour that spanned the state about a year and a half ago. And when we took the time to listen to Kentuckians around what their priorities were for the future of education in the state, they gave us three really clear signals. One is that we needed to change the experiences of our students in a meaningful and profound way, and in a way that prepared them for the fast-moving, globally interconnected economy that it's really already here, and that will certainly accelerate as they get older. The second is that they called upon us to bring innovation into education, particularly around assessment and accountability, and a real feeling that our systems of assessment were a barrier to the kinds of deeper learning that they asked us to bring about from a student experience standpoint. And the third element was that there was a real sense of pride in that Kentucky had done big things previously when it came to education policy, and that it was time to do that again. But those decisions needed to be made with people in communities, parents, teachers, and students at the table, that they shouldn't be made in committee hearings or conference rooms or offices by political elites. They really wanted to make sure that people in communities were involved in those decisions. So those are the three big ideas that emerged from United We Learn. They now form the strategic direction that we're taking with the Kentucky Department of Education, and we hope to see efforts around that continue to take flight. And I'll just acknowledge that there are years of this building in Kentucky. There are just layers of it that are already in place, and connections, previous efforts. And so this is not a groundbreaking new set of concepts or ideas that we're bringing forward. It's really something that when we took the time to listen to Kentuckians, that they said were their priorities, and that we acknowledge there's a great deal of capacity already in existence.
All right, so that concludes the Kentucky Department of Education updates.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Williams and Commissioner Glass. One of the areas that I will say, you had mentioned that it's not major change, but it is just a groundbreaking thing from my vantage point. And we just congratulate you on your new position as you were leading the Office of Special Education and Early Learning, and wish you only the very best.
Thank you so much.
Okay, next we have from CHFS Division of Child Care, Andrea Day.
Good afternoon. So the Division of Child Care, we continue to be very busy. In January, we increased the eligibility threshold for CCAP from 160% of FPG, the federal poverty guideline, to 200%. Beginning in July, we will be raising that again to 85% of the state median income, meaning more families will be eligible. We are also making system changes to continue our temporary child care assistance to those that have graduated out of CCAP. We are paying at 50% the rate that they pay their providers. We're going to extend that to 6 months, again, to help families gradually come off of that program. We still have a number of grant funding grants available, the Family Child Care Grant, the Facility Repair Grant, and the Business Partnership and Desert Grants. There is a link on our update to direct providers to those. We've only had about 700 folks apply for the facility repair grant. We really encourage all providers to apply for that. It's up to $10,000 to put in extra health and safety measures for their centers. Our background check reg has been heard once, and it will be heard again in July, which will take away the provisional hire, but that is to bring us into federal compliance. That way we don't jeopardize any CCDBG monies to our agency, and also to make sure that those providing care to our youngest are safe. And that's all the updates for DCC at this point.
Thank you so very much, Andrea. And just a reminder, and we'll continue to echo that, these dollars that are out there, they are available. They're available for business startups, for that expansion, and especially that facility repair grant. These are one-time funds that don't come around often. So I would encourage anyone, if you know a provider, if you're friends with the provider, get the word out while these funds are available to increase the health and safety of the facilities that are serving the children of the Commonwealth. Appreciate all the work that you're doing. I know that you've taken on additional responsibilities, and we just thank you so very much for the dedication that you've been providing to the office, but also to the providers out in the state. Next, we have, if I can find here, we have our Head Start Collaboration Office update with Acting Director Lynn Baker.
Microphone on. The Head Start Collaboration Grant will be submitted July 1st for the 2022-2023 grant application period. We are also presenting at the Kentucky Head Start Association Board of Directors meeting on updates from our office, and specifically about the early childhood standards release that's happening during this institute. The office will be working also with the Kentucky Head Start Association to convene a cross-sector committee so that we can help support full utilization between Head Start and public preschool. The Kentucky Head Start Association also conducted a masking survey, and 94.44% are currently not requiring masks, and that follows the guidance from the CDC. The federal guidelines have changed due to the change from the CDC. We have been in contact with the Kentucky Department of Health Dental Director, Dr. Julie McKee, and they are starting a statewide surveillance project on dental health for young children, and specifically that will start with Head Start children. So we are going to work with the Kentucky Head Start Association to get that data collected for them. And then if you've been following the guidelines for Head Start at all, the SNAP program federally is now a way that children are identified as eligible for Head Start. That makes it a lot easier for children and families who are receiving those benefits because they can just take that certificate and use that to show that they are eligible. So that's just one step closer to making it easier for children to enroll in Head Start. And then lastly, Dr. Bernadine Futrell, who is the current director of the Office of Head Start, is leaving to take another position within the Biden cabinet. And so the acting director for right now is going to be in place, Katie Ham, until someone is identified and appointed. So those are all of the updates from the Head Start Collaboration Office.
Thank you very much, Lynn. And just kind of piggybacking on where Lynn was sharing for the SNAP eligibility, that is a big change for the categorical eligibility for our children, that if they are eligible for SNAP, to be categorically eligible for Head Start within the state and across the nation. So that is a big change. Hopefully we'll continue to see, like we're seeing the increase in enrollment within our state-funded preschool, that we'll continue to see that dig out from the COVID effects for our population birth to 5. Next, we have within your packet from Department of Health, Paula Goff had submitted in her written report for Part C, early intervention. And if there's any questions on it, and I didn't know if anyone from the table, but I didn't see Paula online.
I'm here as her proxy. I'm Donna Montgomery. I'm the section supervisor for First Steps. Can you all hear me?
Yes, go ahead with your update, Donna.
Okay. It's the right thing here. All right. So every June, the First Step State Lead Agency is required to rate the performance of our local point of entry offices as part of IDEA Part C. The rating scale for that is provided by OSEP, the Office for Special Education Programs from U.S. Department of Ed. And the ratings are based on performance data for 8 indicators that are from our state performance report. The data was from federal fiscal year 20, which would be July 1st, 2020 to June 30th, 21. Even though we were dealing with the impact of the pandemic during that time, 14 of our local POE offices met all compliance indicators. We did have one office miss the target on one of the 3 compliance indicators. Also, as part of that, indicators for our child outcomes significantly improved. And we found that the indicators that were most impacted by COVID were child find and also family survey. Next thing, our early intervention provider re-enrollment is finishing up right now. That ends June 30th. At this point, there are approximately 82 provider packets that we still need to process before the 30th. And the number of our providers does appear to be comparable to past years. We received a small amount of supplemental funds due to a federal education grant that had lapsing funds, and those were added to the American Rescue Plan grant. And the majority of our American Rescue Plan funds were distributed to our early intervention providers actually just last week. We were able to provide them with $1,800 per provider. Last thing that I have is that we have a revised regulation for First Steps. You'll also see us call it KEYS. We're in the process of transitioning names. KEYS is Kentucky Early Intervention System. But we do have a revised regulation moving through the process. And the change is that we will add any level of confirmed hearing loss as an established risk condition. And that is all the updates that I have for First Steps.
Thank you very much. And just as a follow-up from all of the reports that have been shared with us, both in writing and the communications that we've received today, prior years when we completed the evaluation for the Early Childhood Advisory Council, one of the items that was noted was for the membership to have the ability for input, for conversation, ask questions. So I don't want to gloss over or move too fast. So I just want to take a pause before we continue on. If there's any questions, comments, or discussion over the updates that we have heard or that have been presented today. Just practicing my teacher, wait time.
I do have one question about the preschool teaching learning community. Is that specifically for public preschool teachers? I wasn't sure if it was open to other early childhood folks. All right, thank you.
Any other questions or discussion?
Any administration able to do that or just teachers in general?
Just teachers.
I just wanted further information about that learning community. The focus, is it more on strategies or, I know you said it's COVID related, but.
Yeah, there's more strategies to give the teachers a space and opportunity to kind of help strategies to kind of support each other. Just kind of use as fields to network for one.
Okay, well, I don't want to belabor it, but just want, but again, as you continue to serve on the advisory council, the discussion, the conversation, as we're looking at it, really does shape and it informs the work that we do. Moving right along, we have our progress update for priorities from the 5-year strategic plan. And is Amy going to be leading?
I'm here, John.
Okay.
So I'm going to provide an update on the 0 to 3 project. A month or so back, we heard an overview of the project and the collective findings, and talked a bit about options and recommendations. And so today we want to talk a little bit about approaching solutions, but just as a quick reminder, remember that 0 to 3 project was about transitions, handoffs, really how well are they working, and what are the experiences like, and how might we improve those? So we are getting ready. We're working with the communications team to release the report. And, you know, what's most important for our team is really how are we going to make this actionable? And it really needs to be connected to our 5-year strategic plan. So for us, that's critically important. You know, there's an option, we could commission a deeper study. Some ideas that have come from some of our stakeholders that we really have liked. You know, one is investing in some regional, as we're calling them, sort of exemplars. So here's a couple examples. You know, Pritchard as an example, they're already leading some efforts in Owensboro. You know, how might we work with them? And, you know, they serve as a hub and lead some additional conversations. You know, we have a very small staff. We're not in the direct service business. So we really, it would be very difficult for us to lead conversations all over the state. But how might we, as the Governor's Office of Early Childhood, invest in some regional hubs so that they can do some further deeper work? You know, Danville's another example. You know, they're doing some great work. Jefferson, Northern Kentucky, you know, Ashland, maybe who could lead. So those are just some examples. But remember, some of the ideas that came up include expanding Medicaid partnerships across state lines, increasing telehealth access, increasing access for high risk special services. But you know, what we did learn was that there wasn't a quality issue, but, you know, really it is about improving outcomes for babies and mothers. And I think that's all I wanted to share on this, but we will be working with a committee to finalize this. And when the report comes out, we'll be happy to make sure that the advisory council gets a copy. And that's all I have on this. We can move to the next slide, slide 8. We were going to go over this at the last meeting, but we ran out of time. Slide 8 is from our strategic plan, which is around amplifying our value proposition. Next slide, please. Oh, here we are. Okay. Is amplifying our value proposition and state and national presence. And I will tell you that, you know, what our team has done is, you know, defined our key priorities to accelerate change. We've really looked at what would it take to really lean in and outline what is it that we're responsible for, rather than trying to do everything, again, with a pretty small staff. So we have a 5-year strategic plan. That's where we're always grounded. We have 2 priorities, always focused in there. The other thing that our staff has done, I think a very good job of doing is where can we rely on the expertise of others? And I think a good example of that, I mentioned it earlier, is, you know, National Center for Families Learning, KET, you know, where is it that we can partner with other folks rather than us getting into a space that we don't need to be in? As far as elevating our brand, we had conversations early on with our communications team about how well known is our brand. We've tried very hard not to use acronyms, so that we're helping to bring people along and we're not creating barriers. For every one of our early childhood institutes, we've not used themes, but we've just called them what they are. We've used our brand and the Early Childhood Institute. We set a goal around social media, 1 to 2 posts per week, not anything crazy, but that's it. And we've met our goal. Expanding efforts as far as working with our cross-sector partners with regional collaboratives, providing training and technical assistance, really to help meet the needs of different learning styles, providing different tools and consultation and coaching. With our webinars becoming much more strategic with very clear outcomes, so that we're really helping to support quality continuous improvement and that peer-to-peer networking. And then the last thing I would say is our office has done quite a few national presentations this year. We participated in the Teach Early Childhood Conference, in the Early Care and Education Pathways to Success, a national webinar for early care and education pathways to success. And Brenda's getting ready to be on a national podcast. I think our office has done a nice job amplifying our state and national presence, although we can always do better and we can always do more. So I'll take any questions if anybody has any. And otherwise, the floor is Megan's.
Are there any questions for Amy on the update for the 5-year strategic plan and for the priorities? All right, if there's no questions, we'll continue to move on. The next item that I have is the annual RFA funding with Megan Greenwell.
Thank you. So we're just going to do a little bit of a refresher from when we met, when Rena and I had the chance to introduce you all to the RFA back in March. And we're just going to kind of refresh, and then we'll vote on the money amount as we talked about in March. But just as a refresher, the Regional Collaborative Network, they're tasked with uniting organizations in local communities to address the critical early years of a child's life. And we worked really hard to announce that we have added 4 new regional collaboratives this cycle. So we went from 31 out of 37 to 35 out of 37 active collaboratives. And we added several new counties to those that were not currently active in their collaborative. And we can thank this to attendance at these early childhood institutes, our webinars, and our various projects that our office has that is doing daily in and out to encourage stakeholders from all across the state. And so we're really excited to amplify that participation up. So like I said, today, we're just going to be talking a little bit about the original goals of the RFA and the regional collaboratives. We'll go over the reminders of the key changes that we did with this year's RFA. We'll have time for questions, and then we'll vote on the actual investment amount. So as you can remember in March, we talked about how we proposed a more simplified, data-driven, targeted application for our education stakeholders to complete. They aligned with the KRS and the KRA to ensure that it meets the intended goals for the collaboratives. And we compared each section to the statute to ensure clarity and alignment. We focused on equity in the grant writing so that everyone had an equal opportunity and was able to succeed. And we provided strong examples to each section, clear instructions, and technical assistance throughout the whole application process to make sure that they had a strong framework and support while writing and completing the applications. And we tried to, of course, make it more efficient and user-friendly for the applicant as well. We use data-driven strategies to drive the building of the RFA, and we included sections that required them to tie their strategy to the goal of kindergarten readiness by working towards the outcomes in the statute. Each activity that they wrote was presented as a SMART goal, so we can have everyone have a strong start from the beginning. And we base the framework around the Ready Families, Ready Communities, and Ready Schools. And as you can remember, this year, for the first time, we did the RFA for 2 years. So it will be funded for 2 fiscal years. And as for a reminder for those who may not be familiar, the councils are grouped into collaborations of multiple counties, depending on the county size. And the funding is based on per county. And so the goal was, of course, to move the needle of kindergarten readiness for the state. And so all the collaboratives that applied and did the application correctly are eligible for the money. And as you can also remember, in March, we talked about how we were really going to amplify and elevate the RFA by providing them 3 times the original amount that they would normally receive. So you can see on this screen, or as an example, the maximum amount was divided times 3 for your active counties that are participating in your collaborative. And this gives the collaboratives a chance to really plan and project for those data-driven strategies and really be able to amplify their existing strategies that they're using. Are there any questions before we move to vote?
If there's no questions or discussion, just we'll kind of do within the package that we have in front of us for the actual dollar amount that we'll be approving is $3,342,900 per fiscal year. So the motion that we'll be making or to receive is motion to approve the use of the Tobacco Settlement Fund and the amount of $3,342,900 per fiscal year for the Kentucky Regional Collaborative Network. Is there a motion? Okay, we have a first. Is there a second? Probably first and second. Any discussion? All those in favor of approval, say aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries. I will say that as we approve, just so that as we're for those that we're doing hybrid, if we can say it just a little bit louder, so we have that on record, and gives us a little bit of energy within the room as well. Okay, the next item, we're making great time today, but also want to make sure that we give plenty of time to the items that we have in front of us. We have priority number 1 for our goals to support and grow Kentucky's early childhood workforce. This was what was going to be going into executive session. However, we'll continue on within our normal meeting at this time. Okay.
Les Campbell, and I don't regularly use a microphone. I'm the director of creative services for Kentucky Interactive. I've worked on many websites throughout the state, including kycovid19.ky.gov. I've worked on education.ky.gov, educationcabinet.ky.gov. We contracted with Jefferson County Public Schools for about 6 or 7 years ago to help with some design expertise. And I've worked with the last 2 previous governor's administrations on their websites and initiatives. So let's see if technology works. Fantastic. Where's my mouse? Perfect. So previously, I didn't really get a chance to experience it very much, but there was the Kentucky Early Childhood Standards, which was in a PDF form. It was very robust. It was very large file. I think you all probably had more experience with it than I did. And everyone just saved it on their desktop, opened it up, and probably did like a control F and hopefully found the information that they were looking for. I can only assume that's how that worked. Now it's a full-blown website. It's going to be a phenomenal resource for educators. And there's also a parent guide that I'm also going to show off, which looks beautiful printed, but also looks amazing on the website as well. It's going to have the exact same colors. It's going to have the exact same pictures. They really sing the same exact song. So this, the website falls underneath the Governor's Office of Early Childhood Development, and it kind of takes a second place. So underneath the Professionals tab, you now have the option to click, or shall I say select, Early Childhood Standards, and you'll be taken here. As we created this, it was broken into some different age groups. So I'm going to take a knee, so hopefully everyone can see. And these are the different domains for each of the different age groups. To keep following along the navigation, there's different alignment charts, and everyone, hopefully if you're going to be here for the remainder of the week, you're going to have some presentations. We're going to go over this a little bit more. I'm just going to very briefly touch on everything. And then there's additional resources and references that correspond with the standard. I would like to show you all one of the standards. I should have had one picked out a little bit better, but let's pick her. She looks like she's having a great time. So once we get to one of the domains, if there's multiple standards, we'll see them kind of stacked on top of each other, or they'll fall in line. And then each of the different benchmarks, the professionals or the teachers can open it up and see the different examples of how, I'm sure you all are shaking your heads. Great, you all have seen this before, but now it's hopefully a lot easier to see and use. Let's pick one more. There's a few that have goals, and I wanted to show you what it looks like when one was met. So if there's an unmatched Head Start goal that doesn't align directly with the benchmark, they fall at the bottom of the page. And then if there's one that's directly related, it will fall inside of the benchmark. That looks great, hopefully. And this is the corresponding family guide. So my son just turned 6 years old. I really love the family guide. I wish I had this more when I was, especially going through the pandemic. It would have been fantastic, but I'm so glad now that other parents will have this as well. It's more or less the same information, just kind of switched around for a different target audience. Parents, myself. Instead of going through age ranges, it's broken into these different categories. And let's just look through, we'll just pick process art. And then as a parent, I can go through and I can see the needed materials and just some examples or some things that I can do for step 1, step 2, step 3, help your child create a story about what they made. So all this is out there. You're going to have more time to experience it over the next few days, and down here at the bottom as well. So big shout out to the National Centers for Family Learning. They did a lot of this work. I just helped create the platform for them to put their information out there on the web. One thing that I really liked, and it was a great suggestion, was the ability to link back to the professional standards that we just showed you a second ago, so they can kind of bounce back and forth, which is really nice for obvious reasons. So there's also how to use the guide, which I think is pretty important. Below this is kind of at mobile. It's not bad by any stretch of the means. You can open it up, but if a user just gets into Facebook mode and just starts to scroll and scroll, they're at least going to find that same information here as soon as they get there. So if they're looking for something to connect together, to learn about taking calming breaths, they can see this as well. So, and it works great on a mobile phone and tablet. So with that, I don't personally have anything else to share. Does anyone have any questions or comments, or was there something else, Lynn, that you would like me to talk about? Thank you. Yes, sir. Yeah, definitely more could be added. I feel like I have friends everywhere in the government. Fish and Wildlife actually came up with a list of languages that they use for Google Analytics, and they decided that the people using their state government website, the heavy majority of them fell into these languages. Google will almost give us a limitless amount, and instead of trying to overburden the user to find their specific language, we just decided to stick with these. No, it's just a website. It's a mobile website. Yeah. It should look and feel and interact very app-like once you go to the website. At least hopefully that's my goal, right? Yeah. No, no, just Google Translate. Sorry. I do think we have done this before, probably mostly with the Kentucky or KY COVID-19 website. There was more of a need to translate some of the key information, specifically at the beginning of the pandemic, in multiple different languages. They had the time, the budget. Truth be told, this website didn't really exist in the fashion that it did 2 weeks ago. So it definitely hasn't had the chance to be translated. One good thing that that we have done is we've made it very plain language, so that when it does go to be translated, it should translate very simply into the next language. It is. Oh, great. Yes, sir. Okay. Yeah. Yes, ma'am. There is. That's so great. So people still like to do this. And I'll actually walk you through both the parent guide. If you're speaking to a parent and you want to download it, at the bottom of every page, download the full guide. Boom, it's a PDF. If a parent needs it, they can use it. And then let's go to here under resources, additional resources. I believe the very first 2 links are the full standards. One is a Word document and one is a PDF, as well as quite a few other resources. But yeah, they're both still available in file format. Okay, thank you all.
No, I think Reno, and just kind of piggybacking on what you said, how do we get the information out? I think that's one of the things for us as an advisory council also, that's part of our role and responsibility. So once the announcement, once the release comes out, we talked about within the office that we have certain parts for social media, our marketing, to where we do a couple of posts per week. But whenever those come out, I think it's incumbent on us as leaders within early childhood that we also need to get that out within our networks, because we can have vast penetration, because my network may cover so much, but once everybody starts putting that out within their networks, it really does start to have penetration. And then within our regional collaboratives, that was a huge lift and a change for us to go to a 2-year. I know that whenever I was within an early childhood council at the local level, writing those every year, but now to be able to go for 2 years and really do sustained work, I think that's something that's going to be amazing for our local communities and how we can do that. And not to get too long in the wind, but we made up a lot of time. So I have a little bit of time and I have the microphone today. I will say, guys, for Kentucky Interactive, the website looks great. That turned out better than what I really thought that it could have. Getting just to be an online version of just having a searchable standards back in the, a few years ago, it's like, oh man, that was just like the thing. To Control F if I can find something, but now to actually have something that is going to facilitate the profession, but also the instruction for our children and families, and it looks nice. So very well done on it. Guys, we have made up a lot of ground today. This may be the shortest advisory council, so that's going to be my departing gift for all of you. So remember that at Christmas time. But right before we adjourn, just a couple of things to highlight and recap from today's meeting.
Hey, John.
Amy had mentioned within her executive director's update.
Go ahead, Amy.
John, I was just going to say, before we close the meeting, I just wanted to mention something about the standards just before you close the meeting.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to say about the standards. It should not go unnoticed that, the early childhood standards, for those of you all who have been around for a long time, they were first developed, and some of you all sitting at the table helped develop them. So you all know this better than I do, in 2003. But in 2018 that's when the refresh started with the preschool development grant. But I can tell you that this has been such a heavy lift. And, staff turns over, administration turns over, and we just shouldn't take it for granted that this project is completed. And I just did not want this moment to go by without recognizing the strong leadership of, staff, Lynn Baker, Rebecca King, but also all of our volunteers, Dr. Gilbert, Dr. Hood, everybody who saw this project through. And I know I shouldn't name names because then you forget people, but this was a huge project, and the amount of work, just time and dedication and blood, sweat, and tears that went into this. And I just want to make sure that everyone realizes that this could have very easily just not happened, because this staff at the Kentucky Governor's Office of Early Childhood turns over. it turns over a lot. And so I just wanted to make the point, the work is great. Working with Kentucky Interactive has been great. Working with National Center for Families Learning has been great. And just kudos to the staff and to all of our volunteers. So thank you so much.
Absolutely, and I completely agree with everything Amy said. The revision and the updates to the standards has been a long journey, multiple work groups and consultants. We have some that came back with us from the PDG grant to continue that work on. So it is just to see that through. And then what do we say? Now on to the next. So the next thing that we have. So as we close out today, just keep in mind that, for what Amy had shared for the fiscal mapping with the Children's Funding Project, looking at those funding streams and how that's going to impact the work and really make us more efficient as we continue on. The work that's coming out of the Office of Special Education and Early Learning for those leadership academies, those opportunities for our teachers, the facility repair grants. As we're talking about marketing the standards, also whenever we see information, sharing that back out within our local network. So when we get back home, so we're representing the state here, looking at policy, looking at programming, but the work also goes the other way when we get back home, just sharing that out, that those funds are available. And then for the 2-year regional collaboratives, if you're not engaged with your local regional collaborative and that local council, reach out to them if you have not engaged with them yet. It's just good to have that connection. That way we have the grassroots, grass tops. Communication never hurts, because by the time we say it for the 10,000th time, somebody is hearing it for the first time. So continue on with the good work. Appreciate you all. I hope you have a great conference. And as the good book says, never get tired or weary of doing well. Good doing. I need a motion to adjourn. I'll start preaching here in a moment. Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second? Second from Amy. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Have a great day.